Hello and welcome again to Monster Island Radio. I'm Ben, and as usual, I'm joined by the always affable.
Affable?
Yes.
Graham. Affable Graham. That's what I was always called in school.
I'm sure you were. It sounded like you didn't know what it meant. Do you know what it means?
No.
Oh.
Well, it's not a word I would use in a sentence.
Oh, it just means friendly.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
Okay.
easy to get along with.
I definitely wasn't called that in school then.
Okay. So yeah, it's been a little while since our last episode, but if anyone was keeping track of which movies we're going to cover next, you'll know that today we're covering Mothra versus Godzilla, the 1964 movie.
The first meeting.
Yes, exactly. Or as it's known in the West, Godzilla versus The Thing. Not that The Thing, it's a different The Thing. Yes. So
Did you watch both the Japanese and Western versions?
I did, yes.
I have not seen Versus the Thing. I could cast some aspersions about what they were trying to do there, but I'll save that for later.
Yeah.
And you can tell me what really happened.
Okay.
Because I don't know about, maybe they re-edited it a bit, but I get the impression it's maybe purely a marketing thing.
Yeah, you've nailed it.
Right.
So we've covered that. So this is as you're saying, this is the first time that Mothra and Godzilla meet, which is why we covered Mothra in 1961 in our previous episode, so we could cover this film today. So as usual for these films, directed by Ishirō Honda, which was spelt wrong again on Versus the Thing. I don't know why they keep calling him Ishirō Honda, but there you go. And then special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya, and screenplay written by Shinichi Sekizawa. So the boys are back in town again for this.
Same guys as King Kong versus Godzilla, right? Is it not?
Yeah, that's right. And same for Mothra, right? So as usual, we'll do a little summary of this film. This film kind of jumps around a little bit. So again, it's a bit tricky to write a short synopsis, but hopefully this covers most of the bases. So Kurata Coast is struck by a typhoon, and the destruction is reported by Maicho press reporter Ichiro Sakai and photographer Junko Nakanishi when they notice a shiny object amongst the debris. On what I can only assume is a beach much further away from that site, a giant egg is discovered in the sea. The locals and the fishermen bring it ashore, and it is examined by Professor Shunsuke Miura, but the fishermen then sell it to Kumeyama, the owner of Happy Enterprises.
There's some dispute about who could possibly own this egg that just miraculously appears.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but it gets sold nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, because he plans to make profit off the egg in an exhibition, so yeah, buys it off them. Kumeyama then gets investment from Jiro Torahata, who has an idea to make a theme park around the egg. Shortly thereafter, the Shobijin twins appear before them and protest the plans and explain that the egg is from Infant Island and belongs to Mothra. They request the egg be returned, but they refuse. The Shobijin then make an appeal to our trio of Sakai, Nakanishi and Miura to help return the egg, but they're unable to help. So Sakai is concerned that reporting on the Happy Enterprises exploitation of the Mothra egg just gives them more publicity, so he feels powerless to make any meaningful difference. Meanwhile, it becomes apparent that Kumeyama still hasn't paid up for the egg or the land that he's renting for the theme park. So Torahata agrees to loan some more money to him, but with the Mothra egg as collateral. Kumeyama agrees, and then starts incubating the egg to encourage it to hatch. Yeah?
No, nothing. Just gripped by this incredible story.
The trio then revisit the site where they discover the shiny object, as it was highly radioactive, and that's when Godzilla rises from underground. Nearby towns are evacuated, and the JSDF are deployed to fight him off, but with no real effect. The trio then travel to Infant Island to appeal to the Shobijin twins and Mothra to help stop Godzilla. Initially they decline, as they did nothing to help them to begin with. Mothra is close to death at this point, as she's destined to be spiritually reborn from the egg. But the trio manage to persuade them by telling them that innocents are in danger. Kumeyama confronts Torahata about the loan, feeling he's been double-crossed. They fight, and then Kumeyama gets shot in the head by Torahata. But then Godzilla appears and kills Torahata too. Just as Godzilla reaches the egg, Mothra appears and fends him off, She then spends her final moments on the egg for it then to hatch, revealing twin Mothra larvae. The larvae manage to subdue Godzilla by wrapping him in silk, and then he falls into the sea and sinks. The triumphant larvae then travel back to Infant Island with the Shobijin, while our team hope that they can build a better future for the world, built on trust. So yeah, that's mostly it. So this is my second viewing of this film. So the first time I'd seen it was some years ago, and it was Mothra versus the Thing. It was the American version. And I mean, true to form, my memory of it is patchy at best. So it was almost like watching a new film, to be honest.
Right.
So yeah, this was penned as a sequel to the 1961 Mothra movie. But Honda, he changed a lot of it. He got quite involved in the script. And yeah, changed things around and kind of removed any of the sequel elements to it. And I think maybe to provide kind of like a jumping on point for anyone, really.
It does kind of feel though like you kind of do. I guess you don't need to have seen Mothra, but you would feel like you hadn't seen it, I think. Sometimes sequels to movies are made and it's like, oh, we're rebooting it, but we want you to go and see it, without having seen the originals. And they try very hard to kind of conceal the fact it's a sequel. And it's just like, well, if you know, you know. But then with this, I feel like, yeah, you don't need to see Mothra, but if you haven't, you're just going to feel like, I guess this stuff was like introduced in Mothra then, and it's still just kind of an elephant in the room to me. It's still very much like it's not a strong continuation of the Mothra story because it's not really adding much that's new, to be honest with you, is it?
Well, yeah, I think I see what you mean. I do think it builds upon like some of the concepts that were introduced in Mothra, like the whole death and rebirth thing. Yeah, that was kind of that was explicit in this film, where it's only ever really sort of implied, really, in the first one, if at all. So I feel like that was like you weren't missing anything there. That felt like that was new to everyone watching it. But yeah, I suppose the idea of this, I don't know. I guess I see what you mean.
Like the island and the twins are very much set up in the first movie, and it's not that they aren't set up in this one. It's just that they kind of are like there, and like, I think because you're watching like a costume kaiju movie, audiences are just like, well, there's weird stuff, and that's what I'm here to see. So you don't really think about it too much, right? Yeah, but still, it is sort of like, oh, I guess this is going on, sort of feeling if you didn't watch it in order. Yeah, I see what you mean. Because maybe like when you hear the Shobijin voices, audiences would be like, oh, they're back, kind of thing. Maybe that's what that was about. Yeah, they you kind of maybe take the surprise through the two like CD businessmen who are also hearing it for the first time. So there is sort of like a jumping off point there where you can get on board, if you haven't already seen it. I think that would be my takeaway from it, is that if you're expecting weirdo stuff anyway, it wouldn't really bother you. But yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. Yeah, if you're just expecting weird stuff, it's fine. It felt like a Mothra movie in the same way like King Kong versus Godzilla felt like a Kong movie. I think, even by the title alone, you've got Godzilla second billing again. He seems to have kind of taken a back seat. He just seems to be the thread that keeps these movies going rather than being at the forefront. There's a framing device. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, I kind of feel like Godzilla's role was really inconsequential to the story as well. It almost feels just like we need Godzilla, let's find a way to shove him in. Because they have this thing where it's like at one point, obviously the egg is the big sort of like MacGuffin of the movie, right? Where it's like, the egg turns up and people are they're taking the egg like in and out of different people's possession, and then they're like, we should give the egg back to Mothra just because it's the right thing to do. Godzilla shows up at a certain point and they say, well, could we say we need Mothra to come and get the egg back because, Godzilla's going to do something with it or whatever. He could either break the egg, or could Mothra just come and protect the humans and he can have the egg back in return? Like that sort of stuff is kind of discussed, right? But in the end, it feels like Mothra and Godzilla just sort of fight fairly incidentally. Like they would have just fought anyway, even if none of those scenes even happened. They just sort of do fight. The trio don't really do much convincing. and then Mothra comes to get her egg, which I guess she probably would have done, even if Godzilla wasn't there. It just happens to be there. So it doesn't feel like there's much like connective tissue between like the events in this.
No, that's true.
The story is just kind of, I felt like it started off really strong in the beginning. I liked the egg washing up and the sort of mystery there. And you get this photograph of the scale, like you said, in the water. They see this like shiny, silvery scale thing. You're like, oh, well, obviously it's like Godzilla's scale or something. You know the things at this point. You know the kind of, trademark things they do in these movies. But the story's building. And then they said they're going to build this theme park. And that never actually materializes, which is a shame, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they could have done so much more with that from a satirical point of view if they had them build like a kaiju, like Godzilla themed theme park around this egg, and they have like people in costumes who are like wearing like a Godzilla costume. So as the audience, we're like, well, we know that Godzilla's a man in a costume, but then at this theme park they have, the Mickey Mouse kind of costume thing, but it's Godzilla. And you could do like a sequence where people are like riding a roller coaster around this egg, and maybe the egg starts to hatch or something. Like, so at one moment they're screaming from the ride, but then they're screaming because the egg's like, oh, it's hatching. And it felt like that was kind of in the potential of this story. Like the theme park idea is really interesting. It's really callous from the businessmen. That's what they want to do. All they care about is making money. We'll build a theme park. But it could also be quite funny and have a like satirical underline to it, which would really help at this point, because the thing that goes on in this era of Godzilla is that it starts off deadly serious and very rapidly it becomes very, very silly. And we know that like Honda and the rest of the team find that a little bit like, well, we don't really want to make these sequels, but if we're going to do it, we don't want to do the same thing over and over again and all that we sort of discussed in previous episodes. And if they want to kind of like poke fun of themselves and take the piss a bit, having a Godzilla theme park that then gets destroyed by Godzilla would have been really fun.
And then the egg would hatch at the right time.
Yeah. And ultimately the movie, it doesn't really have a lot of fun in it, this one. It's just kind of the things you expect happen.
Basically.
At the point you expect them to happen, and it just sort of is over. It's sort of a bit of an empty movie.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all the stuff you described would have made that make this considerably better. Shame none of that did happen, really. Yeah, it's... I really did enjoy it. But like you say, there was no kind of real... So, I mean, there's no real surprises. And so the biggest surprise was, I was surprised at how violent the little fight got between Takahata and Kumiyama.
Oh, yeah, when he gets shot and all that.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
That was really good.
That was great. That really took me back.
I like that. When he comes in, he's like, oh, you give me the money. And he's like, I'm not going to give you the money. And he starts beating him. I was like, this guy's going to get like beaten to death. And I was like, that would be like really interesting of like, and then the fight goes on.
Gets shot in the head.
Yeah, and the building comes down on the other guy, and it's like, they kind of got their comeuppance in the end, but it's also like not anywhere near the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a really good sequence, but it feels kind of dramatically like it does sort of just happen.
Yeah, I mean, because you're saying it kind of descends into silliness. I kind of disagree with that, in so much that like it doesn't go silly, not as cartoony as like previous, not like King Kong versus Godzilla, where
I think what I mean is that the series is gradually becoming more and more silly with each movie, and this film needed more of the silliness in it to make it kind of feel like there was more to it. I think. Yeah,
because I think ultimately ended up being a little on the bland side compared to previous entries. I'm not saying that I think this movie is bland, but like when you think of the trajectory that it's had so far. Yeah, you'd kind of expect just that little bit, something more. I do feel like it was quite refined, though. Like, I think maybe not. Maybe refined isn't the word, but like I suppose the pacing of the ideas that they had. Like, for example, like there's a Mothra egg, and you're not spending 45 minutes waiting for it to hatch just to see something happen.
Yeah, I suppose.
There's stuff on screen, and there's always something happening. So, like, I mean, you get Mothra appears in the first 15 minutes with the Shobijin, Godzilla after about 30 minutes. There's always some action going on, and like the drama is kind of, it's good enough, I think. Like between the bad guys, the Happy Enterprises guys. And you get like the military attacks and stuff like that, and it's like it always feels like something's unfolding, which I quite liked. So I never actually felt bored except there's a couple of moments where I was. But for the most part, I think the pacing was like, they nailed it for this film compared to previous ones. Because like we were saying with King Kong versus Godzilla, we preferred the American cut just because things are a bit snappier.
Far better.
Yeah.
Which is, you wouldn't think it would be, but...
Yeah. But
just the pace of the action movie genre is much quicker, I think, in the American one.
Yeah. But so for this, I think they were aware of that and just wanted to keep things happening all the time, which makes this a good film, really, I think. Not the best, but good.
I kind of disagree. I think bland is a pretty fair description of it, to be completely honest. You're right that the monsters have a good time code in this movie where they pop up at a good pace. We're seeing them. We don't have to wait ages. You're absolutely right about that. But it is done kind of in a rote way where it's like they do, because they've done a few of these movies now. They know exactly what we want and they don't have to waste time getting to the point. We've seen Godzilla and Mothra before. We've seen kaijus before. So let's get to it. That's good. But the story, the narrative, just doesn't have enough like drive behind it to make those things feel like important. And it's a shame because I think there's some good elements there. Like so, the business stuff with their conflict is good. The whole kind of the really crass element of them wanting to sell the egg, I like that. I thought the first 15-20 minutes was actually really, really strong. Yeah. And then to me, it just sort of the air goes out of the balloon before anything's even happened.
Yeah, because it feels like people are just doing things for the sake of doing things.
Yeah, they go from point A to point B, and then eventually the monster fight starts, and it's actually quite long and meaty. There's a lot of monster fighting in this, isn't there?
Yeah.
But it feels like, and we've said this about other movies in the Millennium era, sometimes it feels like the monster fight and the human part are just two completely separate things. And they don't feel completely separate in this movie. It's not quite as divorced as that. But like I said previously, I feel like Godzilla and Mothra were going to fight. As the audience, we know they're definitely going to fight regardless of anything that happens in the story. But it just felt that within the narrative, nothing the people did or even anything that happened with the egg actually made that happen. That, Mothra was going to come and get that egg, even if no human being ever even saw it, and Godzilla was going to be there and they were going to have their duel, sort of thing. And, in none of the businessmen fight, and I know that one of them does get killed by Godzilla, but even the heroes, the main three, none of them ever, particularly in danger because of the fighting as such.
Not really, no.
So it doesn't really feel like the two things kind of overlap that much.
There's no real threats.
No, it's it's enjoyable from, special effects, Godzilla and Mothra are fighting, okay, that's fun. Music's very good. But yeah, it doesn't feel like it's got the narrative push of the American cut of King Kong versus Godzilla. And, all of our thoughts on the Mothra standalone movie are in that episode, but I liked it much more than this, I think.
Yeah, despite its pacing issues.
Yeah, and anything else that we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. But I think because I wasn't bored and I was enjoying what I was seeing, I felt like it was good.
Mothra's one of your faves, isn't it, as well?
Yeah,
so that kind of helps, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Ghidorah and Mothra. I always thought Ghidorah was my favourite. I think Mothra's on par, frankly. It's okay, but it's kind of weird because I know that this is a fan favourite. This is always top of the list. I feel like we can be a bit, I don't know, I feel like sometimes we kind of go against the grain a little bit with our preferences. So, yeah, there's something we're not seeing that everyone else is.
Maybe it is just because the length of the battle is pretty significant. Like, a lot of the movie is them fighting. I think a lot of times I've especially complained about there not being enough of it. So it's, people might look at this thing like, well, what are you complaining about? Like, there's so much kaiju battling. Yeah. And there is, but... I suppose if we weren't doing this podcast, we probably wouldn't really be as critical of the weaker narrative aspects of this because we kind of set out to be critical. We found something that's actually quite a big flaw and really zeroing in on it. Well, I don't know if I agree with that entirely because I know that maybe you would. Yeah, maybe I would. But yeah, I mean, I'm at the point where we've seen good stories and we've seen good action, even in these older ones where the action is still, just a guy in a suit. I think I'm just at the point where Godzilla has stopped being a dramatic, or at least a purely dramatic thing within the Showa era. We're already at that point we were in it already with the Kong movie. And Kong movie has enough things that are silly about it, whilst also being a bit of peril, where it all kind of fits together. And I'm at the point now where I know Showa goes full comedy at a certain point.
Yeah.
And I'm not really, maybe if I was watching this back in the era and this movie had just come out and I wasn't aware of what was coming down the road, I wouldn't find it quite so dry. But I know we're going to get like Gigan and all of that is coming. Jet Jaguar, I'm waiting to get back to that. So it just felt like a bit of a drag. And I think, yeah, you're right. If you took it at face value and just saw it as like, this is like, got some dramatic elements, which are quite good, like we say. Lots of action. There is lots of action, so if you like it, it's good. It's just to me, it just missed a couple of little ingredients that would have made it have its own kind of depth. Yeah. Because I think, we talked about this in the King Kong vs. Godzilla movie, where there was an element of them trying to satirize the over-commercialization of TV.
Yes.
Which, you can argue even that, like, how well does that really come across within the movie? But this
better than this. I mean, like, the messaging for this is kind of like, I don't know. It was a bit sort of...
What is the message?
Yeah, this is the thing. So I think, the strongest moment was probably Junko's appeal to the infant island villagers and Mothra and stuff, about, moving forward in harmony with everyone. Even bad people deserve to live. They have a right to live and stuff like that. And this whole kind of, moving past history and let's make things better. Don't dwell on the mistakes of the past, but, look forward instead. That element was the strongest, I think. And that did come through, even if it was a little bit kind of, oh yeah, by the way, this is our message. I don't know what they were saying about the press and stuff like that. I know they were saying like, oh yeah, I don't want to write articles about these bad guys because, there's no such thing as bad press, because it's just giving them the publicity they want. While that's true, were they trying to make that point? I couldn't really tell. I don't know. It's like, was that what it was about? There was no clear message.
I think, one thing is that, I guess it's fair to say that just because I may have missed the point doesn't mean there wasn't one there. But I think that is quite generous to journalists as well. Like, well, they're not going to report something if it just, gives a bad guy publicity. Like,
exactly.
Come on now. Like, maybe back then in 1960s Japan, that was a thing. But certainly these days, we know that the negative headline is the one that gets the loudest, broadcast, right?
It was a bit kind of like, propaganda for journalists. Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like, which is why I couldn't really tell what point they were making.
He's so virtuous that he actually ends up just standing by and not doing anything about the problem. And it's like, okay. I didn't like that character much. At the beginning,
no, he showed himself to be a complete dick right at the beginning.
Yeah, so he's all critical of her, like, camera work. And she's a bit naive and not very good with the camera, to be fair. But then she also is a bit more pushy than him and a bit more journalistic, where she gets people to like talk and like, I'm going to ask you this question. And then she lets the actual reporter actually say something because he's too kind of timid. And maybe there is something to be said, like maybe the Honda and the writing team felt like, well, we want to talk about how journalism has gone toothless, in the modern era, and that's going to be part of this movie.
Was that?
Maybe that's a bit lost in translation to me.
Maybe. I don't know. I couldn't tell.
It is there, I guess, but just didn't feel like there was any moment where the journalists were like, oh, if only we'd said something, we could have prevented this. That scene.
Yeah, there was none of that.
Yeah, there's no sort of remorse. They just say, well, I don't want to write about this guy. I don't like him. I don't like writing about this guy, so I won't. It's just
pretty much the entire time. Yeah, they were either doing nothing or they were only doing good things, and even the good stuff wasn't that good. I don't know. It was just a bit.
Yeah, I think you're right that the strong scene where she says, like, there's a lot of good people who are going to die if we don't do anything, and there's a lot of bad people who still deserve to live.
Yeah, I really liked that. I thought that was a good speech.
It's easy to overlook that as like, it feels like maybe it goes without saying, but there might have been a point in time, or maybe even now, where a lot of people just don't even feel like that's the case, and that does need to be heard and need to be said. And so it is easily overlooked. So it's possible that I'm just overlooking some of the subtler elements to this and not getting enough out of it.
I think, the thing is, like, I think those, if they're going to do like a subtle point, it needs to tie in with the film in some meaningful way, but it doesn't. None of those little things really seem to have any impact. Like you're saying, like the journalists, like they don't really, like do they even do a report? I don't think they do in the end. Like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. It just didn't seem to affect anything that happened in the movie, except for them going to Infant Island to speak to the villagers there. I don't know.
maybe they want you to have this kind of revelation yourself where you're watching these two businessmen fight and you don't like either of them because they're both like heartless, corporate guys. They end up killing each other. One of them gets killed by Godzilla. And then you have this scene in the film which says, like, bad people don't deserve to die just because they're bad. And you're supposed to feel like, oh, I actually thought that was quite fun when Godzilla killed that guy by knocking down the hotel he was in. And you think, oh, I shouldn't have felt good about that. And maybe that's, like, in it in some way. Like subtle things like that, which I don't tend to notice on the first viewing. But, yeah, the movie just had a vibe of just, like, emptiness to me. I don't know.
I think like it's weird. It almost felt like they tried remaking Mothra, and they were like, "Oh,
which is what sequels always feel that way anyway."
Often, yeah. So it felt like that, and they were like, "Well, we're just doing the same film. Let's have Godzilla in there." But I mean, there's so many elements to where it's like you could like the roster's basically the same as the 1961 Mothra movie. You got a reporter, the photographer, like scientist. The infant island people, the big baddie guys as well. Like I mean, it's Relisicans and
who are money driven.
Yeah, exactly. It's just to exploit the island, and it's just kind of it's almost the same. And I think that's why it felt a bit toothless because it was like, well, we've already seen this setup, but
done
probably better.
Yeah.
So it's like. They were fine, but it just didn't stand out because of that.
I cannot remember the comedian or the actor's name who was in Mothra, but like that element added so much to it. The
snapping turtle guy.
Yeah, it was like, oh, well, this guy's like, actually like, the character works dramatically, but he also is quite funny and charismatic to watch. Yeah. And this just did not.
It just didn't have that.
And that's what I was saying with like, the theme park should have been built and should have been knocked down and people would have loved that. Like, they're all like kind of taking it for granted that these kaijus kind of are dangerous and what kaijus really mean. And then the kaiju, the Godzilla comes and shows them how dangerous he is. That would have just been like kind of enjoyable to watch, I think.
Yeah.
It's weird that they kind of dangled the carrot a bit on, we're going to build this theme park, and then they don't. Okay. I didn't really think about this when I was watching it. I wasn't like clock watching thing like, when are we going to get to the theme park, But after it was ended, I was just like, I can't believe they never actually got anything out of that. Like Godzilla stamping on, the bumper cars or something would have been fun.
Yeah.
But, oh well.
Maybe it'll happen in another movie that we've not seen. Probably not, but...
No. Don't tease me.
Yeah.
I love my own ideas.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, if you hadn't seen Mothra, I know it's annoying we keep comparing it to that, but it's difficult not to.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you hadn't seen Mothra, I think you'd be fine because it's like, I think all that stuff would be new to you. So you would, that's kind of nice, I guess. But
they have to decide then in a way. Like, I guess, maybe this is a little bit too critical, maybe not. But do they want you to have seen Mothra or not? And I get you saying like Honda's like taking out some of the sequel elements so they can get it so you maybe don't need to have seen Mothra, but. I prefer it when you're watching a series of movies and they kind of do lead into one into the other. And typically in the Japanese sensibility, that isn't the case. They sort of retell things quite a bit, don't they? So we're used to that. But yeah, for it to be so similar. I mean, we already saw this in the other way. The whole like juice thing.
Yeah, it's made its third appearance.
There's going to be some magic juice. We know Shoeiro's got loads of magic juice in it, so we know this is going to be the thing of them repeating stuff. But yeah, just was missing a magic ingredient.
It was.
And the other movies, Kong versus Godzilla and Mothra both have that charismatic edge that you can't bottle it. But it's just there or it isn't. And to me, I know you're saying it's a fan favourite, but to me, this just doesn't have it. I think you could, just watch Mothra again kind of thing.
Yeah, completely. So, who was in this film? We had, the character Ishirō Sakai was played by Akira Takarada, who was Ogata in the 1954 original Godzilla movie. So he was the reporter, as we said. Really rude guy. He showed his colours right at the beginning when he was reprimanding Junko for not being quick enough with photos.
And then not even writing the story. What does it matter how quick she is if you're not going to write anything?
No, I think he'd actually already written the story at that point about that coastline.
It's figuratively speaking, though. He's a hypocrite.
Oh, absolutely is. So I wasn't keen on him. That's all I've got to say about him, really. Then you got
just kind of a nothingy character,
completely nothingy.
So moving on.
Next one, Junko Nakanishi, played by Yuriko Hoshi. So she was the photographer. She
had potential as a character, but like you said, we have actually seen that character before.
Done better.
So it was like
I liked that she was a rookie. Whereas the other one was more seasoned, but this one was kind of like an over-eager rookie. And
she wasn't...
And she was better than they gave her credit for, I think. They just assumed she would be a bit of a numbnuts, but she had some gumption about her, so...
She wasn't letting herself be pushed around, even though they were trying to push her around, so that was good.
Yeah.
But it made you think about the photographer and like, oh yeah, that was a really good character.
Yeah, exactly. And then you had the other... Macho Press guy, Jiro Nakamura, played by Yu Fujiki. He's the egg guy, the guy that eats eggs. I suppose he's the only one that actually made any impact in the film, even though he wasn't there for a lot of it. For a lot of it. So he kind of accidentally saved everyone by saying, "Oh, just ask Mothra to help," and then they do, and then it works out in the end. Yeah.
Love it when a character has a really intellectual moment like that and pushes the story forward. Why don't we just get to the next scene? Good idea.
I liked him. I liked his character.
Yeah, a bit of comic relief there.
Yeah, it needed,
not a problem.
It needed it. Just a bit of texture. Then you had Professor Shinsuke Miura, who is played by my dreamboat guy, Hiroshi Koizumi. So I was very happy to see him again. I forgot he was in it. So when he first appeared, I thought he was going to be Shinichi from Mothra, the character he played for as the linguist, but a bit more kind of like, world weary. He was fine. He was okay. I see. It's just difficult not to compare this to Mothra because you're just like, it's those same characters, but just not as good.
Well, they shouldn't have made it so similar if they weren't going to like improve upon it. Is the thing?
Yeah, I would say that the bad guys. Well, I actually preferred them to the Realisticon bad guy.
Yeah, they're a bit less hammy.
They're a bit less hammy, and I bought the evil a bit more, even if it was it did border on cartoony sometimes. So you had, Jiro Tarahata, played by Kenji Sahara. So he was, if you remember, Kazuo, the boyfriend in King Kong vs. Godzilla. Yeah, it's that same guy. So he was like the worst. The big bad. He was the he most
did the
evil.
shooting with the gun.
He did the shooting of the gun. Yeah, he was the investor that screwed over Kamiyama. You can tell that the actor, he really enjoyed that role. The whole kind of like cigar chomping, villainy kind of thing.
People love playing villains, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're given the most to do in this film easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Apparently the actor, he spent some time like pretending to be looking for a property to buy because he wanted to spend time with estate agents to see their level of overconfidence. And I think he nailed that whole detestable trait that all estate agents have. So,
dear.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. And letting agents as well. Yes.
Can you not just go for landlords? That's the easy. People don't mind it if you slag off landlords. These people are trying to make a living.
All part and parcel.
No, I don't know. I'm not sanctioning these comments except that landlords are horrible.
So yeah, nailed it. Awful. And then Kumiyama, played by Yoshibumi Tajima. He was the president of the Happy Enterprises. He was just a bit of a little shit. He was quite funny. I really liked that scene where they were fighting. I really liked how irritated he was when he was looking for Tarahata. I was like, that was very entertaining. It was like seeing him get angry was quite funny.
It
was good. It was an enjoyable watch. So yeah, they were definitely the most fun to watch.
There's an interesting element there where like he's going to win the fight. If it came to blows, he could actually kill this guy, which not pleasant, but he could win the fight. And then the character element is like, well, this guy's going to shoot him in the back. That's the kind of guy he is.
Yep.
That's a really interesting dynamic. And I get, if the movie really is telling us that you shouldn't lust for the death of bad people, I kind of get that as a very noble point of view. I would argue that within the movie, and I'm watching a film for catharsis, it's okay for me to root for the villain to die off in the movie. It's not saying I want real people to die, so I should be able to kind of enjoy my, proclivity of enjoying death fictionally.
Yeah.
Just don't, stop criticising what I do for fun.
I wasn't sure if they were trying to make a point about greed. It's like, well, if you're going to be greedy, this is what's going to happen to you. You're both as bad as each other.
If somebody had run into the building to get the money as it was starting to be attacked by Godzilla, and then they died as it collapsed because, all of that, they'd be like, well, if you hadn't gone in there for the cash, that would be a death by greed. But I don't know. I don't know, dude. I think it is just that they're saying, like, well, these people, like, do they deserve to die just because they're a bit misled in life or greedy by money? Not really. They don't actually deserve to die, even though, it's kind of fun to watch it happen. So that's the kind of, I think that's what they're sort of getting at.
Confused messaging is what I'm getting from this, because between us, we can't decide.
Well, don't make a fun death scene if you don't want me to enjoy it.
So that's the principal cast, really. And then, of course, you have the Peanuts, who are back again.
Yeah, a welcome return.
Yeah, absolutely. I found myself really looking forward to whatever song it was they were going to do. Music's not as good as it was in Mothra 61, I think. You mean
in terms of the songs?
In terms of the songs, sorry, yeah. Should be specific there. I really did like that. It was called, The Sacred Spring. It was the song they were singing when they were sat at the only place that had any kind of green left on the island. I thought it was really nice. It reminded me of The Jungle Book, like that song when you see that villager getting the water. Yeah, that whole kind of vibe. I really enjoyed that. It was really pleasant. It wasn't catchy as such, but it was a really nice song.
Same year, isn't it, Jungle Book, as this?
I think it is, actually, yeah, 64.
They stole it.
Ooh.
No, they didn't.
Who came first? The Mothra or the egg? So that song was okay. I wasn't so keen on the chant they were doing to hatch the Mothra egg. Yeah. Hatch. Yeah, something like that. It was okay. Those songs weren't as good, I don't think. Again, we keep comparing it, but if you're going to do this, you're going to have these comparisons.
Second album syndrome for Mothra.
Yeah, definitely. But the score, I do think, was very good. So this was kind of the refined Godzilla theme that everyone knows, really. With the
a lot of
bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, a bit more meaty almost. It's a chunkier sort of sound to it.
Yeah.
They must have got a bigger orchestra in or something, because it really sounds like they pumped it up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was a good choice.
Definitely. So strongest music so far, score-wise, I think. And I don't know if you noticed another piece of music in this movie.
Did I notice another piece of music? I have a clue. I don't know what you're talking about.
We use it on this show from time to time.
We?
Yes.
I don't know.
There's,
is it our sort of like the episode's over, but not really music at the kind of
the Kaiju Corner?
Yeah.
Yes. It's the Kaiju Corner theme. So I
didn't pick it out, to be honest. It just passed me by.
When you see the Shobijin, when you see the Happy Enterprises guys discussing their plans,
right.
when they first appear, that's that music. So so I used that and remixed it a bit and added a beat and stuff and bass line.
I do remember noticing the music now, but I didn't make the connection. Because I was like, oh, this music's nice.
Yeah.
But it probably has a residual...
It could be that.
I enjoy it because it has, it's from the podcast I'm on. So, of course, I would like it. But, it's obviously from the movie.
Yeah.
That was a really good sequence, though, when the little twins were running around the room, and obviously they were in a to-scale set to make them look small.
Yes.
And they had 3 or 4 different setups of different parts of the room.
Yeah, room. Yeah.
Yeah. That must have been quite costly to we're going to make this part of the door and then this part of the closet and then these 2 chairs.
Corner of the chair. Here. Yeah, exactly.
And to be honest, that was a strange peak in the special effects, I think, in this movie, where a lot of the other effects shots were not quite as good as that.
Yes, I completely agree there. So, other characters, obviously, we have to speak about Mothra and Godzilla. So, Mothra herself, a lot more characterization for her this time around. I think. She seems more like a goddess in this than before. Like before, she, you know, her only intent was on protecting the island, but like in this movie, she kind of recognizes the bigger picture. You know, she's only interested in harmony for the whole world. You know, she's not
only. That's my only goal.
Yeah, that's her only goal. Just that one simple goal.
Humble me, Mothra.
Yeah.
No big dream. Just, you know, world peace. Is it too much to ask for?
Yeah, I don't feel like she had any kind of particular allegiance to humans or anything. It was just the goal was world peace, I suppose.
And benefit if you could save your own egg at the same time.
Well, yeah. So she's very noble in this film, which I liked. I really like her character. The trajectory of her character, I think, came into its own in this movie, which is why that was a big plus for me with this. So bland stuff aside, I really liked how they've developed her, really.
Mothra specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Godzilla doesn't really get much of a level up from this film.
Yeah, because I mean, even like Mothra, she gets like she gets another power in this, you know, her kind of like bee sting move with the pollen and stuff like that. You know, everything's kind of been amped up. But yeah, Godzilla, I mean, it's the same Godzilla from King Kong versus Godzilla. So we assumed he was dead, but obviously he wasn't. So yeah, he's antagonistic again. Although his motivation was kind of a bit, I don't know, it didn't seem like he was particularly
motivated
evil
at all.
No, it's like because he tripped over and fell on that castle, and it just seemed like he was just a bit of a hothead. Like he stubbed his toe and he's just like, you know, just pissed off. Yeah,
he was very, very clumsy in this. Where he had his tail caught in a radio tower and got all wound up about that. Then he was falling over the castle, and I was like, this guy, he's having a bad day. But he was bizarrely clumsy. I found that quite funny. I don't know if it was intentionally funny, but it was funny to me. I don't know. It was just like, whoa, falling over into the castle. So he doesn't really. There's no goal for Godzilla in this movie. He just is. He's in his animalistic state. They've characterized him. I mean, we've talked about this before. Sometimes Godzilla has character intent and he is doing something, whether antagonistically or otherwise. Sometimes he's just an animal, gets caught in the crossfire. Classic example of that would be Godzilla 98, you know. And in this movie, he's that. He's basically just in the wrong place at the wrong time, it feels like, and bears the brunt of it. Yeah, and then when he's kind of, I suppose when he makes a play for that egg, that's when he tips the scales into being a bit of a bastard. Yeah. I suppose it looks delicious. Come on. It does look tasty. Fry that up. Delish. If you saw a Cadbury's cream egg or Cadbury's mini egg even, that scale... Who could resist? Not me. Exactly. So, you know what? Good guy, Goji. Let him have his egg. Yes. So, it was fine. It was, good. Although I think this is the last time he's a bad guy. In the Showa era. In the Showa era, yes. Or is we'll see, I guess. I'll take your word for it. I'm wondering if there's going to be some times where he's not a good guy or a bad guy. He just sort of shows up and saves the day, sort of just because. I don't know. Again, like with the with Godzilla killing the Happy Enterprises guys, was that meant to be Godzilla's the real bad guy. He's the real bad guy. Only if you agree that like all incidental death is done like maliciously. Like Godzilla. It's funny, you never actually see you only see him directly kill one person and it's a bad guy. But he doesn't know about him at all. Is he just like all knowing? No, but like, you know, it's that implied thing, isn't it? It's like, it's just an implied kind of like, see, the bad guy got killed by this Godzilla. You know, you never actually see any innocents die because I think they would paint him in a specifically bad light. But like him killing who you would expect to be the worst, the biggest villain in the movie, I think shows him to be an even bigger villain. I don't know. Godzilla is like the Emperor to Darth Vader or something. Yeah, that kind of thing. I just think the guy gets killed and it's like, he's in the hotel, he gets crushed and it's just kind of... I think I'm looking for things that aren't there. Yeah, I don't think there's much in it. You know, we've seen other movies where like, the woman in the hospital gets smashed up. Not all Godzilla deaths have meaning, and maybe this one feels like it should have, and maybe it does to some people, but to me at least, I was just like, he just died because it was what was happening at the time. I guess, but like you were saying, like, they're both greedy about money. They fight over money. One gets killed in the fight, and then the other guy just dies. And it shows you the futility of those kind of conflicts. Regardless of whether or not Godzilla's doing anything intentionally or not, it's just showing you, like, well, they spent all their life caring about money and bickering about money, and now they're dead. What did it get you?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what they're saying, really. But Godzilla still remains pretty inert as a character, regardless of that.
Yeah. So for the fights and the special effects, so as you were saying earlier, like, well, we have the usual special effects in this. You know, you got compositing and miniatures and blah 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 blah. But also, as you were saying, the big sets for the
bigatures, as they are sometimes called.
Oh, is
these
that the
days.
term? I wasn't sure.
Coined on the Lord of the Rings production.
Oh.
Idea that you make a set which is mini, but it's big.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And that was so good.
They were good, but
really good.
It's a shame that was so short-lived. Like,
it was just that one room, wasn't it?
You can easily discern that they maybe put a lot of money and effort into that, and then maybe they didn't have time for other things. They had the little rock. Shobujin twin, the rock, and the box that they sort of live in is also clearly like there is a big version of the box that they can actually go inside as human people.
I don't think there was a big box.
But I think there's some scenes where, like, they show them in close-up standing in the box, and it's just like, you can tell it's like it's to scale, like they're inside a little box.
Oh, I thought that was just composited.
And then there's a box which she actually just carries on. I mean, I think there's a bit of both is the thing.
Oh, okay. I'll have to watch it again.
But yeah.
But yeah,
maybe they tricked us, can't tell.
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on?
I mean, that does speak volumes about it, really. So
there's a lot of dodge blue screening, though, where you can, they haven't quite got the production line running on, like, how can we get this through without having a big blue halo around everything?
When they first tried it, that was in 1961 with Mothra. And then again in, was it 62 or 63 with King Kong versus Godzilla?
62?
I think it's 62. So yeah, it made a big jump then, and now we're in 1964. So it's only been 3 years.
Yeah, but other movies are being made around the world, It's like they're not exclusively hammering away at compositing on the Godzilla franchise. So it's like, it could be a little bit better. It
could be better. I'll give it a pass. I think it's still early in their production, so.
Oh yeah, I'm not that furious about it. Just you
sound furious about it.
I'm just seething. There were some shots where they had obviously like composited out the actual sky. I like this as an attempt where it's like, oh, we were filming on a blue sky.
Yep.
We can have real humans running around in actual street, and then we can put Godzilla in the background by taking the sky out, and then I guess putting the sky back in. They didn't look completely right. Godzilla ends up quite washed out in those shots, and it's actually working very, very well until it cuts to a shot of the costume Godzilla on a scale set, and he's so like dark and grey and filled out. It's like, oh well, when you go back between the two, it reveals that there's imperfections there that maybe could have been concealed with a bit of editing cleverly to like not put the shots side by side.
Yeah, I think that probably you might be talking about where I noticed it most was when he was at that power plant or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I did like how it looked.
Yeah, I liked it as a look. I think it shows like they've got a vision for where they're going. Like we want this to be looking great down the road, and this is the start of it. So it's nice to see sort of them building up to something.
Yeah. And then the fights that we had. So there were 2 fights. Yeah, there's only 2 fights, isn't there, really? You have the Mothra versus Godzilla fight, which was very good. I really enjoyed all of that. And then the caterpillar fight at the end. Yeah. So I kind of checked out on the last fight. I've got an anti-lava bias anyway. I don't like how they look. I think they're ugly. And now there's 2 of them, and they were just spraying in for nearly 4 minutes.
Yeah,
of just spraying, and I was like, okay. A lot
of the shots are repeated.
Yep, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this now.
It makes you wonder, why does it go on for so long? Who's benefiting from this? Like, who's watching it in the editing room and thinking, need about 30 more seconds of that? Like, do you?
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if it's because, well, they needed the larvae to fight Godzilla.
Well, yeah.
So they added in that whole bit about trying to save those school kids that were on that island for some reason. And I was like, okay, so they've added that bit in just to make sure there's some drama there and keep the fight going a bit longer. But that whole bit felt so kind of is perfunctory, the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, that's in there just so they can do this. And then, well, now they're doing this fight and it's just going on and on and on. Why?
It's not very dynamic.
No. I mean, it starts off quite well because like you see him biting his tail and he's flipping him around and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, there's some good action here. But then they're like, okay, we've done 30 seconds of that. Now it's 3.5 minutes of spraying. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I think there's strong components in both fights, but both of them have this problem where they're both kind of stretched out. There's a portion in the Mothra versus Godzilla fight where it just cuts to extreme close-ups of both characters' faces.
Oh, the Michael Bay moment.
Yeah, thrashing around very, very close up to the camera, so you don't get really any sense of what's happening, but it's drawing out the fight to be, it's longer, like, they're thrashing about, and it's chaotic, and they're fighting each other, and you're like, nothing's really happening. It's just like shots, and it just lacks a dynamic element. And to be honest, I feel like Godzilla fighting a moth comes across about as well as you would expect it to.
Better than I expected, honestly. I thought it was going to be really, really ropey. But I actually, like when she was dragging him along the ground, I really liked that. It was kind of funny. It's kind of weird because I think when you have, because they, with some shots, I could be wrong, but it looks like they'd undercranked it so that so like her wings would be beating quite fast.
Yeah.
But then Godzilla
definitely
looks like he's almost like stop motion because he's
like rolling around like rapidly. And
stuff. It looks really janky. But still enjoyable, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's some ideas there. I think it's just notable that, like, Mothra, I mean, I guess it's happened now. They've had Godzilla versus Mothra. We don't need to do it again. But in the future, we do just see her in, like, the assisting role.
True.
Which is, she's much better utilised as, like, I just come to, like, do some pollen and I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that I do well. And I've said this before, like, Godzilla fighting a flying enemy are never really I don't think it works that well.
Well, yeah, I mean, Megaguirus.
That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Don't like that Megaguirus.
It always manages to come up in conversation again, doesn't it?
Never gonna go. You can see in Megaguirus, because I've thought about this last night when I was watching the movie, that obviously we've done Millennium Era and we've done bits and pieces of other Godzilla stuff here and there. But when you think about it chronologically, you can see why Megaguirus compared to this it would be so exciting, because it's like, well, when he fights a flying enemy, this is in Megaguirus, it's so much more dynamic and it is faster and they're more creative what that character can do in the air. And Mothra is a product of the time, of the 1960s. It's just like, well, this is what giant moth is going to do. And I don't dislike it. I just feel like it's just one of the less exciting fights. And I almost feel like they kind of knew that by virtue of them putting in these extending shots, which don't really serve any purpose except to kind of trick you to think something's going on. I get the good bits, like you say, like when Mothra gets Godzilla on the ground, when Mothra does the pollen, and when Mothra gets over to the egg whilst Godzilla's incapacitated, all those components are really, really good. But the action actually goes on for quite a long time other than that, and I'm not usually critical of that, but to me it didn't really have much like narrative weight either.
It's strange because this was, I think, the first one that was like fully choreographed and not just like messing about.
Yeah, you two just go over there and do your thing.
Yeah,
is usually what you get.
It must have been quite hard to film because she had like a 15 feet wingspan, which is a huge prop.
It's easily taken for granted, I suppose, what the actual kind of work is involved in those shots.
Which is probably why, like you're saying, they added in those extending shots because, there's only so much they can do with a 15-foot puppet.
But I feel like the bits that they had, which went well, are spectacular enough that I would have preferred the movie to come in just shorter. Like, we don't need 4 minutes of these larvae creatures like shooting string at Godzilla. Like, we really don't. And in fact, it would be more impressive if they shot string at him for like maybe a minute. Even that feels like a lot. And it's so effective that Godzilla is just incapacitated. You know, maybe they want to show like, oh, well, because there's two of them, they can overcome this guy, Godzilla. And not really show that the worm creatures are overpowered, you know? They want to keep the balance. Like, well, it takes a long time for them to defeat him. And there's two of them as well, so he can't,
one could have been
back.
Spraying. One could have been biting his tail.
Yeah.
There's just so many other things you could have done.
It's just not that interesting. And it's fine, and the effects look good, and they serve their purpose for the story. But when after the 4th minute of it, you're like...
Yeah.
it's hard to stay engaged, honestly.
They could have had one spraying, and then the other caterpillar could have saved the school children.
Yeah, they could have ridden off on its back. That would have been really fun. There's so many little fun, like, appealing things they could have done to just add a bit of charisma to this. Like, oh yeah, that's really fun. I guess it's hard to really appreciate how complicated these movies must have been to make, and maybe it just takes time and attention away from those things. But I just, you know, when you see Godzilla smashing up another castle, we saw him smash up a castle with Anguirus and in the King Kong one, and now again, I'm like, couldn't it have been a roller coaster? Like, couldn't it have just been a roller coaster? And, you know, some people could have just like careened into his mouth, like off the jump or something, you know, like
maybe they're having, because it's a different castle each time. So this was, I think, is Nagoya Castle. Maybe they're having like we're going to do it one film at a time. We're going to take them all out. Maybe it's just a little running joke.
Yeah, it's hard not to think of it as a bit repetitive, though.
I agree.
But I'm sure we'll see at least one more castle before the Showa era.
Probably. Maybe that's just what they're really good at building. They're like, well, we know we can do this, so let's just build another castle.
I imagine that is an element of it. Like, we have the plaster cast, just pour in a new, you know, fill up the mold, get it set, blah, blah, blah. I hope we get a scene like, I've been watching Rocky movies recently, and I hope we get a scene in like Son of Godzilla where it's like Godzilla is training, you know, the baby to knock down a castle or something like that. I'm hoping there's a training montage in the movie. That would be really fun.
Oh, we're setting the boom too high here.
Oh, well, you know. That's what I'm saying, though. I mean, I'm a victim of my own expectations.
Completely. I mean, you came in swinging with better story ideas at the beginning.
Oh, well.
You know?
Yeah, maybe. But I just know. I know in that, you know, in the series, we're going to get to some stuff which is at the least absurdly funny, if not intentionally funny. And I'm like, well, this movie just feels like it wasn't dramatic enough and it wasn't funny enough. It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. There was that bit, actually, when... you know, when they were under the table after they were looking for the Shobijin twins.
Sure.
And they were like, oh, what are we going to do? And then as they kind of like got out of the table, Sakai, he hit his head on the table. That was like the funniest moment. I did laugh out loud. I thought, oh, that was quite funny. But when that stands out as the funniest moment, you're like, oh, it's not that funny.
Don't really remember it, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
I thought the funny thing, the character who like, I can't remember their name, the guy who eats the eggs and suggests like, oh, go talk to Mothra.
Nakamura?
His kind of vacant like personality trait, that was quite amusing. I felt like he doesn't really kind of like, he's not really
he only cares about eggs.
Yeah, he's very sort of like seemingly dim-witted, but, you know, offers good advice. And I thought it was just a funny sort of well-written sort of role. That I like that. There wasn't even like a redundant romance in this one, which is something to be grateful for.
Wait, how did I not spot that?
Yeah, there wasn't even that. Like, this
is always my thing, getting pissed off about pointless romance, and I didn't even notice that it didn't have it. Surely, yeah. Oh wow, okay, that's a good plus.
It's a plus, but it's also like, what is happening in this film? Like, not a lot. Yeah. I do love the action. I love the special effects, and it does have strong bits, as I've said. But like, just comes in under the mark when you compare it to Mothra and King Kong vs Godzilla. It's just not.
Yep.
It's not the same league.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yep. Agreed. Did you have a favourite moment?
Well, I did really like the fight. I think it was too drawn out. And like you said, there was two fights. And I was like, two fights? But really, to me, I felt like it was just one long battle. But I think that was a really good element of the movie. I just wish they put a bit more drama behind it. So like I, you know, cared a bit more about like the consequence of that. But other than that, I felt like it was really well executed for the most part. Yes, there was some silly bits with them putting too many shots in 4 minutes of string and blah, blah, blah. Said all that. But yeah, I feel the fight was the standout core component of the movie. Otherwise, I did think the whole egg thing was quite amusing, and I was like interested to see where it would go, but it didn't really go anywhere, so that was a shame. But yeah, the fight, I mean, if you're just watching these in order, the fight is the reason to watch it. You know, you get a lot of good action out of it, and in a movie where the story is weaker, at least there's a really great, you know, bit of action there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the fight. What about you?
There was two bits really for different reasons. I know I shouldn't really pick two, but I'm going to anyway. So Junko's...
It's your podcast.
Yeah. Junko's speech, I really liked.
Yeah,
that struck a chord. I think that was very good. You know, an evergreen message there. And then the other bit was when Godzilla's head caught on fire when he was getting bombed.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was that.
That was a mistake.
That was intentional.
It was a mistake.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, but they kept it in. I was like, that worked really well. Visually, really, really entertaining. So those are my two favorite moments, I think.
And the nasty men fighting over money was also enjoyable.
But yeah, that was very good. See, because I did, that was another one.
I have two as well.
Okay, cool. Because I wrote that one down as well. I was like, I can't have three, so I took that one out. But yes.
You can't have three.
Okay, we've got a limit.
Indulging yourself now.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so are you ready for a quiz?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so we're going to have 4 questions, 4 possible points. So, question number 1. How many eggs do we see over the course of this film? Is it 7, 8, or 9?
And this is like, when we've seen an egg, we've seen it now. We're not. Because if it was like every single shot of an egg, we'd have like more, wouldn't we?
Yeah, no, it's
okay. I'm going to say 8.
9.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. That includes Mothra's egg.
They should have called it Godzilla versus the Egg. Not the Thing.
Well, okay. Question 2.
Huh?
Which of these is the German title for the film?
Okay.
Godzilla and the Prehistoric Caterpillars, Godzilla and the Ancient Egg, or Godzilla and the Enchanted Butterfly?
Disappointed these weren't read out in German. I'm going to go with the egg one.
Sorry, it's not. It's Godzilla and the Prehistoric Caterpillars.
Just for my own amusement, I'm going to quickly Google what is...
I was going to put the German title in, but I was like, I wouldn't be able to pronounce it.
The German word for egg is...
Ei.
There you go. E-I. A.
Ei.
Okay, that's a strange word.
What about ancient?
I'm not doing that one.
Oh.
Okay. Do you want me to do that thing? What is it?
Half-assing it. No, fuck it. Let's move on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, question 3. By what name is the turtle on Infant Island affectionately known as by fans? Is it Skeleturtle, Dry Bones, or Sheleton?
I noticed this giant, turtle skeleton, which I don't think is, biologically accurate to a real turtle in any way. The first one.
Correct. Yes.
Oh.
Skeleturtle.
Skeleturtle.
Yeah, he has an official name. It's like was it the? Oh no, I've forgotten it. The Mystery Bones of Infant Island or something like that. It actually got officially licensed merchandise.
Not surprised.
Yeah.
There's time for everything in this world.
Absolutely.
Buy your favorite turtle bone.
Yeah.
Consume.
I don't think it was supposed to be alive, but because its head was swaying around in the wind.
Oh.
Yeah, they were like, oh, it must be alive. And then I think the fandom kind of caught up on that.
They released bobbleheaded it or something.
Just went with it.
I read it as dead. It's clearly like a skeleton.
Yeah, it's dead. It's hollow.
There's other bones there.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway. Question 4.
When do we hear this music?
This is the music I hear when I go to the cupboard and there's no Oreos left.
So, do we hear it when they're constructing the electric fence? When we first see the shiny Godzilla scale thing? Or when they first go to Infant Island?
I think it's when the scale's there.
Correct.
And they're saying to you, this is going to be a really interesting, mysterious movie. Take note of this very important clue. And I did.
And then it comes to nothing.
Nothing really happens.
They don't even say it's a scale. It's just a thing. And then it's just a reason to go back to that Karata coastline. And for Godzilla to appear. It's just a, it's a MacGuffin, I suppose, but it doesn't seem to have any, you don't actually find out what it is.
Well, it's supposed to be a piece of Godzilla, I guess.
You guess.
So
you guess.
Well, it's a clue that Godzilla's coming for us, but we already know because the film's got Godzilla in the name. And then there should be scenes in the movie where people are like, I mean, this would be quite...
Why couldn't someone just go, it looks like a scale?
Well, Yeah, I think this is the
Come on.
the thing it's missing is a scene between people going, I think Godzilla's coming, we should prepare. Don't be ridiculous. Godzilla's not been seen for 2 years. And that's what's not there. The clue doesn't ever generate a narrative it doesn't become part of it. It doesn't become part of the narrative at all. But it would also be quite boring if they were like, Godzilla's coming, and people were like, we don't believe in Godzilla, because that's the only way you can really play that, is that people dismiss the clue, even though it's so obvious what it means, right? But because it's so obvious what it means, it's just kind of like, we just leave it. We all know it means Godzilla's coming, so the movie doesn't even bother to do anything with it. But yeah, I was really enjoying the first 15 minutes of this movie. And part of the reason was that music.
Oh, there you go. Right. Okay. Let's see how you did.
How did I do? I think I got 2.
You got 2 out of 4. Which is
usually about how I do in it.
About average, yeah. So well done.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So overall, I mean, as I said to you before we started recording this, I was a bit worried we wouldn't really have much to say because we were not overly hot on this, really. I mean, I do think I get why it's kind of why people like it so much. I think it's the strongest in a sense that it appeals to a wider audience, so it appeals to kids and adults. And the pacing is good. You get plenty of fighting. The special effects are still on an upswing, I think. The music's more refined, especially the score. The story ideas are more refined as well. The characters bland, but they're well acted, and you get the peanuts as well, which is always nice. I mean, as I said, there was a lot that let it down, really.
It's less than the sum of its parts. It's a classic example of that, where like all these little bits you just mentioned, great. Every little thing is like, oh yeah, that works and that works.
Yep.
Somehow it just doesn't
glue together,
a cohesive whole.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's a shame, really, because I'm glad people love it. It's just I'm not one of the ones.
Yeah. I really love the messaging, though, as I mentioned before. Looking forward with optimism, which is, I suppose, at the time, the war, is past. When was this? 64. So nearly 20 years on. I think there's an economic upswing there. So everyone's feeling a bit better. Good state of recovery. Let's move on. Which I think comes across fairly well. I wish I had that level of optimism, but I don't.
Difficult at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
If only Mothra could come by with some sort of general platitude about being nice to each other, we would feel better.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it works on a messaging front in that aspect. But yeah, like you say, there's lots of other stuff that just let it down because it didn't feel that well put together with all these different elements.
It does feel like they are, despite the inclusion of Mothra, they need a creative kick up the arse a bit to be like, okay, we need to keep on doing something interesting. And then the next movie, I think has some of that. Not to look too far ahead, but it does have a bit more. There's new elements coming up in the next one. It's going to be a bit more interesting, I think, than just like, it's Mothra again, and here's Godzilla this time.
Oh, actually, we'll be doing Rodan next.
Well, the next show
Godzilla movie. Okay, right, yeah.
I've not seen Rodan, but I do know it has magic juice in it.
Oh, and it's also got Mega Nulas in there.
Mega Nulas?
You remember the Mega Nulons?
Oh, that's how they bring them back.
Yeah.
Mega Gyros.
Yes. So all of our favourite elements will be in this movie.
Okay.
Okay, so if a newbie was coming into Godzilla, do you think this would be worth watching? Do you think
that's a good place to start?
As a good place to start, and generally, what do you reckon?
I don't think it's a bad place to start, despite everything I've said, because it does have a lot of the ingredients. And yeah, if you hadn't seen Mothra, this would maybe be a bit more novel to you. You're seeing all this stuff for the first time. It wouldn't feel like a retread. So in that regard, yeah, it is a good place to start, even though I think there are better movies, because if anything, you're starting with one which establishes a lot of good stuff. It's portrayed reasonably well. And yeah, though it's got weaknesses, it just means you're going to go on to largely better stuff, I think. If you went from this to, Three-Headed Monster, it's like, well, these are two good movies. if you went from Mothra to this, I think you'd be a bit bored, which is exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a good Godzilla movie. It's a fine place to start if you want to just go straight in with a versus. And there's reasons you might not want to start with Kong versus Godzilla, because it's maybe just a bit too westernized. You want to start with a pure Japanese one. Maybe this one's a bit better for that reason, perhaps. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I agree. I think it's a good reintroduction of Mothra. I think. I think you disagree a little bit in that aspect, but I feel like you could just go in without knowing anything from her original movie. I think you get the idea, and then it builds on her lore. I would say Godzilla's presence is never fully explained, really as to what he is. I suppose everyone knows what he is. There's that
just
understanding.
At this point.
Yeah, so everyone knows what that's all about. So I think you could get away with someone coming completely fresh could watch this and not really worry too much about what Godzilla is or why. It's just understood at this point.
And newcomers who are not fully invested may just want to get to that point of Godzilla comes. I don't, unless you're looking specifically for an introduction to the character, you can just watch this and enjoy the fact that there's no preamble. Godzilla's here. Just enjoy that, and maybe you can dig into the lore and any nitty-gritty stuff after the fact. So I think depending on who what your goal is in watching a movie, then this is not bad because it doesn't explain anything, but you're also not bogged down. So pros and cons.
Absolutely. Okay, so yes, now time for Kaiju Corner. So I think people who are listening probably know what this is now, but if anyone who doesn't, care to give us a rundown, Graham?
Kaiju Corner is a special time for both of us where we talk about Godzilla things that aren't actually Godzilla movies, because Godzilla being such a cultural icon has left an imprint pretty much anywhere you look in modern culture. So Kaiju Corner is where we get together and we think, what are some of those cultural things that have happened with Godzilla? And talk about them.
Exactly that. Perfect. You do quite well with that. You managed to get the point across, but you say it differently every single time. I'm wondering at which point you're going to repeat the exact same thing in another episode.
Maybe you should make a recording where all of the explanations are laid over and just see what that sounds like.
So, since our last one, there's actually been quite a lot in the Godzilla verse, I suppose, that's happened. So
the kaiju community
has been on fire. There's been the announcement of the next Toho movie, which is Godzilla -1.
Looks exciting. Period drama Godzilla movie?
Is it a period drama?
Well, it's not modern day.
Oh, is it
drama? As it is,
Yeah.
It's a period, and there'll be drama.
Okay, so. Yeah, true. Because when you said that, I imagined feudal Japan with Godzilla. I'd quite like to see that.
That's something else they could want to do, if not already.
So there's that. There's the Godzilla. Do you say Godzilla X Kong, Godzilla Cross Kong?
When it's in the Japanese sense, it's always cross. But if it's a Western thing, it's probably an X.
I'll say X. So the next MonsterVerse movie was obviously announced. So Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire.
New Empire, oh yeah. They changed the name from
Godzilla and Kong,
which was bad. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the X is quite fixing the problem, but
it's better. I like how it looks.
Yeah, the subtitle was good. The subtitle's good.
Yeah. So there's that. There's going to be a prequel comic for that as well. There's also actually, I'm not sure if this is out yet. It might be. The Godzilla versus Kong Justice League comic from DC Comics.
Oh, yeah. I think you sent me a tweet about that.
Yeah, which I've not actually looked into since, but there's that as well. There's the Skull Island anime came out, which I've not seen yet. There's the Skull Island game coming out, I think based on the anime. There's just...
Skull Island, all the kids are clamoring for Skull Island stuff, are they?
I don't... maybe? Apparently. I don't know.
Yes, clearly.
Yes, is the answer. And there's Apple TV Plus. They've got a series coming out, Monarch, Legacy of the Monsters, which is a MonsterVerse TV show, 10 episodes.
That's live action, is it? Or?
Live action, yep. I think it's in and around the San Francisco disaster, so from the 2014 Godzilla.
They're still chasing that MCU, golden ticket.
Yes, there's a bit where they've shown some screen grabs, and there's a bit where the school bus on a bridge with Godzilla there.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, so I think it must be at that same moment. It might not be, but it kind of looks like that. So that could be interesting. I am actually looking forward to that. I'm not going to get my hopes up too high, because, who knows. But we'll see. But in any case, that's a lot of stuff. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff coming up. But we're not going to talk about any of that. So for my little section of the Kaiju Corner today, people listening might remember on the last one, I spoke about the Dawn of the Monsters video game, which is the Kaiju beat-em-up from 13am Games. So the publishers, Way Forward, they got in touch with me again and said... would I like to have a go at the DLC that's coming? And I said yes, and I played it. And
wow.
Yeah, so that was great. I think it's going to be out on the 24th of August in North America, and then 28th in Europe.
So it's fair to say it's out by the time this podcast is.
It will be. I think by the time I finish editing, hopefully this will be out on the 24th.
It's out now.
Yes, it's out now, exactly. So yeah, so there's kind of two DLCs, I suppose. There's a free update coming, which includes there's a story mode plus, where you get to replay the game again with all your augments, and then there's new game plus, and it goes all the way up to new game triple plus.
Wow, novel.
Yeah. So greater difficulty and new enemy variants and stuff like that. There's also Japanese voiceover, which is when I spoke to Alex Rushdie on our bonus transmission last time. He was telling me about that, which is cool. So I played again with that on, which was really good, actually. I really did enjoy that. There's also a trial mode, which includes 10 challenges there, and there's a bunch of new achievements as well. So that's the free stuff. The trial mode I tried. I suck at it so bad.
Can you explain what trial mode entails?
Okay, so an example of one of the trials is there's like a lighting system on the level. So if the light's blue, you can attack the enemy, but when it's red, your attacks are ineffective. But it's a one-hit kill for you. So you're kind of trying to avoid enemies when the light's red, and then you're trying to attack them when the light's blue, but also not get hit yourself, which honestly, as much as I love beat-em-ups, I still suck at them. So that for me was just so hard. I haven't managed to do it. In fact, I've only been able to do one trial so far, which is one where you've got to throw the enemy projectiles back at them without getting hit by one.
It's a pet peeve of mine in games. You have to ricochet a projectile.
Yeah, well, you for this you pick it up and throw it back.
Oh, okay. It's not like Zelda style, if you would.
No. But it's hard. In fact, every challenge I tried was so difficult. So, but I don't think my skill set is up to par for that. But I'm going to keep going and see how far I get with those. Because initially I saw it and I was like, oh, it's only 10 trials. That'd be quite easy to do. But they're not. They're super hard. So this is definitely kind of, once you've really rinsed the game for all it's worth, this will keep you playing for a bit longer. So that's the free stuff. And then there's the arcade mode and character pack DLC. So that includes the arcade mode, which is where you play through from start to finish. I mean, do I need to explain that? Maybe I should. You play through from start to finish with lives instead.
So it drops like a lot of the narrative stuff, I would assume, as well.
Yeah,
you don't just a pure as it would have been in the arcade, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't go back to the hub world or anything like that, or there's no cutscenes. It's just from start to finish. And there's like a new power up system for that mode. So at the end of each level, you'll get one augment you can add to your character, and they will kind of stack. Because normally in the story mode you'd have 3 augments that you can equip at any one time, but this is after each level you get a new augment to add. So you end up with quite a few by the end, and you can kind of choose how you want to play. So you can have like predetermined set of augments you can select from as you're playing through the arcade mode, or you can do it's called the rogue mode, where it's random. That was probably my favorite one because it's like each time you play the arcade mode it'll be different, which I really liked. So that was quite difficult. I could actually do the arcade mode, thankfully. Like I said, I can't do the trial mode, but I actually managed to finish the arcade mode, so I was quite pleased with that. But yeah, there's a lot of replay value there with the random augments, I think. And then there's the new playable character, which is Meteor Temujin, So there was a vote between 3 additional characters, and this is the character that won the public vote.
What kind of character are they?
It's like Megazord from Power Rangers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's got 4 pilots. This is quite good actually, because I wasn't so keen as playing the quick characters in the base game. I preferred the big powerful ones, but this is kind of a blend between the two, I think, which is really nice. And it's got like 3 different weapon playstyles. So you have like a sword, which is the quick attack, an axe, which is the medium speed, and then the slow hammer attack. I was a bit disappointed that was the character. I knew that was the character that would win the public vote. I really wanted another one to win, but it didn't. But even so, the character is fun to play as, so, you know.
They have any other characters that are similar to that? I suppose in the vote they had like 3 or 4 characters that were nothing like anything that's already in the game.
Yeah, so the one that I wanted was, I can't remember what it's called now, but it was kind of a bit like Kong, I suppose, in a way.
Right.
Which was not like it.
It's like creature sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't like any of the others, so that would have been nice. I guess people just want to play as Megazord, so that's fine.
So when you're playing this arcade mode, are the stages like literally like for like as they are, or is it like...
Yeah, they are the same. It is the same.
The enemies like are the same. It's the same like frequency of attacks, and it's not like more difficult in any way. It's just like these are the stages with all the hub elements is cut out.
Yeah, it's the same. So like, but your health carries over to the next level as well, which is where the challenge comes in.
It's a good way to kind of replay it without kind of getting caught up in things that you might have already seen like a handful of times from replaying it another way, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. So it's definitely more challenging, and it's my preferred way of playing, honestly. Replaying it again, I like the story mode. It is fine, and I did enjoy it, but I do feel like I've done that now, and yeah, for me, it's the arcade mode is now where I'll be replaying it. Yeah, and there's also a nightmare difficulty, which I've only done normal, and I mean, seriously, I'm so bad at this. I thought I was quite good, but yeah, playing it now, I've realised actually I've really got to up my game. So
when they put this Megazord type guy in there, any other sort of little Power Rangers like hints or nods or Easter eggs, like, you know, like in jokes, maybe they've got anything for that for Power Rangers fans, or is it just like is it just purely this is a trope that we're just going to do and it's not going to point directly at Power Rangers in any specific way? It's not parodizing it, parodying it, or anything like that.
I don't know Power Rangers well enough to be able to tell you. There could be all kinds of stuff in there, but I mean just the structure of how they are, you know, the 4 pilots with this one machine. I
do like the Megazord. Like I said, I'm not a Power Rangers fan, but when the Megazord gets built, that, you know, you're not human if you're not enjoying. That's great. Like
literally every single time the Megazord comes together is exciting. When you're watching Power Rangers, yeah, like always the best
outstanding
bit. Yeah,
outstanding. And then all the Green Ranger stuff and the White Ranger stuff. It was good. It was. I just didn't care for the teen drama stuff, which is too... I don't give a shit. But yeah, one day we just do a broad Power Rangers episode. You could just like pick a few episodes. You could be like, oh, we'll just sort of talk like the first one and the last one or something, and see like
we could see. Yeah,
how does the quality change? I mean, they're still making Power Rangers now, technically. I've seen like a Christmas special one time actually where the Power Ranger has to like they don't know what Christmas is or something because they're a Power Ranger, so they like go to like different parts of the world and experience Christmas.
They don't know what Christmas is.
Yeah.
How? Why?
No,
they're humans.
It was really bad. I can't remember what it was called. I couldn't find the name of it quickly. Hold on. Oh man, there's more than one Christmas special of Power Rangers. So, tell you what though, if you ever want to do a Christmas, well, there's no kaiju in it. There's no fight in it. There's no like. I was going to say, if you want to do a Christmas special,
Christmas special would be
Monster
good.
Island Radio, you could just cover that. But like, there isn't any fighting in it. There's no kaiju element.
I don't think there's ever been a Christmas in a kaiju movie, is there?
There's got to be. There's got to be a Christmas kaiju movie out there somewhere.
Hopefully one day. We'll see.
Do you get the impression that if this DLC is successful, they'll do more? Maybe those other characters will get a chance to appear? This is what I hope, because that would be good. I mean, even as a franchise, I think it has legs for a sequel, at least, for them to hopefully come into. Which, you know, I hope does happen, because this is... they're on the right track for kaiju games with this. So, hopefully. But yeah, I guess, if it sells well, I mean, surely that would incentivize them to keep going with it, right? Well, you'd think so. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like they've got a good set of ideas, you know, entice people to come back to the game with free updates that are quite robust and demand a lot of replay value. if you're somebody who's already replayed the game to death, maybe you be enticed to buy the DLC and give yourself another reason to try out these modes with a new character.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then it's like, well, even if the DLC is successful, they might decide themselves like, we want to get on with that sequel now. So, and maybe those characters that were lost in the vote would then pop up there.
I'm hoping so. That's my hope. So yeah, I mean, if you've already absolutely rinsed everything you can out of the game, and then you finish the trial mode, then yeah, I would say take the plunge. I've had a good time with it. Yeah, so thank you, Way Forward, for that. Really enjoyed it. Fingers crossed for some more in the future. Okay, what have you got for the Kaiju Corner? It's been a while since you've had one, right? I keep steamrolling over whatever it is you want to say.
Was it you did the game last time? Now you've done the game again.
Yeah, it's weird. This time jump.
Yeah. So, Kaiju Corner.
Yes.
I get to speak.
Here we go. Now's your time.
So, me and my wife, we're big NBA fans. We love watching the NBA. It's the off season at the moment, so we're really, really parched for basketball. When it's on, though, they like to pump a lot of music and like sound effects into the stadium, like to get the crowd going. That's just part of American sport. If you watch it, you would know that. And we often play this song called Simon Says, and it's by this guy called Pharaoh Monk. He's a hip-hop artist. So it's a remix of the orchestral score from Godzilla vs. Mothra. And it's really, really good because it plays that, that starting bit of the tune with a nice hip-hop like bass line behind and the drums. And it just really is good at getting you a bit hype. And as a Godzilla fan, I love hearing that. So it's a perfect example of where, Godzilla has permeated not just the hip-hop music genre, but now it affects the basketball that I watch as well, because they always play it. They play it probably, I would say, purely from the NBA. I'm hearing it maybe 3 times a week when I'm watching. It's a lot. And it's not exclusive to just one team. I support New York Knicks, and they play it a fair bit. Especially when they're like 5 points behind or so. I try to kind of discern why they play in this particular bit of music with all of the stuff they do. And I think they put Simon Says on when they're a little bit behind and they can get it back, or they've just fallen back from a lead sort of thing.
To kind of pump them up.
Yeah, so if the Knicks are behind, you're hearing Simon Says a lot. But you hear it in other stadiums as well. The quality of these sort of sound effects or music samples as they are varies from team to team and how much money they spend on this. And some stadiums keep it completely dry, which I've come to really dislike.
Yeah, you want a bit of atmosphere, don't you?
Yeah,
I think that's kind of one of the good things about American sport. Like, I think, because I can't stand football, but was it the MLS? Is that the American Football League? Like when's
Major League Soccer? Maybe. That's
I think that's it. Like with certain teams when they're playing at home and like when they score and stuff like that, they'll have like jets of fire going off by the goal. And I think it's in Oregon they have, or somewhere in Oregon they have like a guy with a chainsaw sawing off a big bit of a trunk.
Yeah, is there a team called like the Lumberjacks or something?
Something like that. It's just like, it's really entertaining, and I really like that kind of atmosphere. So like, yeah, having music pumping out during a basketball game. I mean, why not?
I think it's the Portland Timbers you're thinking of. They have the lumberjack, saw a big log in half when somebody scores a goal.
Amazing. Love that.
Yeah. You don't need it, but once you've become accustomed to it, you really miss it.
I can imagine. I mean, it just adds a bit of flavour, right?
I hate it when I really obviously have an affection for the Knicks because we support them. They're pretty good at the moment. They're not the greatest. They're much better than they have been in recent years. But yeah, then they go to some stadium and it's just like, it's effectively silence. Like, you can hear a bit of the crowd, but like, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
It's so like, let's have some fun sort of thing.
Yeah.
And when so much of sport is taken all too seriously as well, I think a bit of that is worth it. There's a balance, obviously. You don't want it to be too invasive, but it's fun. So yeah, Simon Says, perfect example of how Godzilla's left his big kaiju footprint on culture, both in more ways than one, all at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like, would a lot of people know that that's what the tune is? I don't know.
What, as it's from Godzilla? No, I would expect that younger audiences, because they don't really use the tune in that way in the MonsterVerse stuff that they've done recently.
No, it's more the yeah.
it might be there in an osmosis sort of sense, but the youngest fans, like you kids, early teens, they probably just think it's a cool song because it's so common in hip hop that you think like that's a great tune, and you just don't pay any credit to the fact that it's probably sampled from like 6 or 7 different places. And occasionally I'll be listening to stuff, and Spotify is quite good at this. The Spotify algorithm will sometimes like throw out the original part of some song, and I'm like, oh, that's tune I like listening to, but it's not. It's where it's originated from, the sample. So it's always good to kind of go back and look that up. And it's funny, because we were obviously complimenting the soundtrack from today's film, but they actually sample the 92 version. What's the name of that era when we get to that?
Heisei.
Yeah, that's going to be a completely different kettle of fish. Or kettle of kaiju.
Kettle of kaiju, yeah.
When we get to it. I'm looking forward to that whenever the time comes, because it will be totally different to the Showa stuff.
It's a good era. I've seen a few.
That's the ones we used to rent, a lot of those, didn't we?
Yes, that's true, actually.
So we've seen those back in our salad days, as we would like to say.
Yeah, it's interesting how, because you'd see Godzilla or Godzilla references in stuff like The Simpsons or any other cartoon or comic or anything. But yeah, for the music to break away and kind of become its own thing like that is quite interesting.
I wonder if this is strange to say, but I wonder if I'm enjoying it more than other people who don't know. It's not necessarily where the sub comes from, but you start to, from my perspective, perceive the target player of the music as the Godzilla's personality. And that makes it so fun when it's a player that you like as well who's coming up the court. And if they are like just a little bit behind, they just need a couple of hoops. Yeah. It's like, this is really, it's good. My wife likes it as well because she obviously has learned from me that it's from Godzilla. But
I think even without that, it's such a good just sequence of notes to that beat.
Intimidation track.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like a proper name for that in hip hop or not, but like that's how it comes across in the basketball. They may well play it during NFL or any other sports. So I only watch basketball personally.
It's a great tune. Let's hear it now. So, I guess that's it then for the Kaiju Corner. So, Mothra versus Godzilla. It's got one thumb up for me. I think it's fine to watch. So, it's okay.
Enjoyable movie.
Enjoyable.
Not a special movie, shall we say?
No.
I would be interested to have a conversation with somebody who says it's their favourite and really like convince me, because not seeing it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well,
each to their own. And
anyone who's listening and this is your favourite movie, please
blow us up.
Yeah, come on.
In the comments, I mean.
Absolutely roast us for getting this wrong. So you can. How could they reach out to us, Graham?
Well, you could go on various social media platforms. Choose your, tumultuous social media platform of choice. Are you on the Threads? I don't know.
Actually, this podcast isn't. It should be.
Oh, announce it now.
Okay, so we're also on Threads now.
And where would we at?
It'd be Monster Island Radio on Threads and Instagram.
Great. And the other one is Monster Island RP.
Yes, on Twitter.
The other one.
That
one. We're not on Facebook. We are on YouTube. YouTube.com/Monster Island Radio, I would assume.
Yes, that's the one.
And if there is a social media, place that's come up out of somewhere since this was recorded, give it a go. Search for Monster Island Radio.
We'll probably be there.
Still amazed that nobody took this podcast name before us, but we got it. We got the one with the best name. That doesn't matter about what the content is. This one's got the best name, okay? And I'm very pleased about that. So
yeah. I think anyone who reaches out to us on any platform, they're very friendly. I think people on YouTube put us on blast mostly, which is fine. We want to hear the opposing views.
Different opinions from our own. That's what we want.
Yeah, exactly.
And we know what we said. We just recorded it.
Yeah. So
tell us something.
Tell us why you love this movie. We want to know. We're genuinely curious.
Yeah, actually,
genuinely are. So yeah, message and comment and all of that malarkey. I've noticed people have been rating us on like Apple and Spotify and stuff like that, and thank you so much.
Is it still called
iTunes or Apple Podcasts? Apple Podcasts.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
That's fine.
You're giving a compliment to our lovely listeners.
Yeah,
I was interrupting.
Yeah, you were. How rude. And so, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate that. That's really nice of you. And also everyone who likes the episodes on YouTube as well. That's always lovely to see. Really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you everyone, and anyone who hasn't rated us, please do so. We would appreciate that too. Go. Why not? Yeah. Also, I have an Etsy store. I'm just going to plug that quickly.
Oh, you can get a couple of Mothra stickers there.
You can get Mothra sticker there. You can get a Mothra poster there. Well, not poster, print. So I did have it on I mentioned it in another episode. I had an imprint store. Well, I've managed to find a way to do things a bit cheaper, but the quality is still the same. So it's on Etsy. So Ben M.R. Hall Art on Etsy. Just search that and you'll find it. So yeah, if you feel like you want to help me out and you like the print that I've made, then by all means buy one. I'd appreciate it. And yeah, again, big thank you to Way Forward. So thank you. And I guess that's it. Anything else?
See ya.
Cool.
We want to be here.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.